Brenna, do you remember those direct to VHS Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen movies back in the day?
Was
like in
I
the
a
90s?
girl living in the 90s? Yes, absolutely.
For the last 24 hours, all I've been able to think about is the song Brother for Sale from the Mary-Kate and Ashley movie, Brother for Sale, or the music video. Was it just a music video? There was a movie. I think Steve Guttenberg was in it, maybe. Or not. Who cares?
I don't
but
recall.
the song that goes, Brother for Sale. I've had that in my head all day, except for it's been Blazers for Sale. Because, Brenna, the Portland Trailblazers are for sale.
What was your reaction when you saw that news break?
I probably should introduce the podcast before we get too deep into it.
Probably.
This is the Oregonian Sports Podcast. I'm Bill Oram, joined as always by Brenna Greene, who's more confused by me than ever this morning.
Well, at least I understand the reference as a millennial girl, so we got that going for us. I was more of like I've seen Brother for Sale on social media, but I think I got more into the Mary-Kate Ashley sphere when it was like, they were teenagers and Passport to Paris and things like that.
They had so many that were like, they did one where they were like there was like a Wild West, Old West theme.
There was one of the Bahamas that I am forgetting.
I think I was in the fan club for a while. Like there used to be like this Scholastic, like the book, not the book fair, but like there was like a pamphlet that you could order things from, like a catalog, and like being in the Mary-Kate and Ashley fan club was one. This will surprise no one who knows me. You could be in the Jonathan Taylor Thomas fan club, which I was not. I remember getting some Boxcar Children books, which I actually think are in a box here next to me, but it came with like a little like cardboard boxcar to store the books in, stuff like that. The 90s were a hell of a time.
Yep. There's another good one where they were in Australia. I'm forgetting names.
That one. I do. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Anyways, this is really important.
The Portland Trailblazers are for sale, finally. Jody Allen is moving forward with executing Paul Allen's estate plan. The trust will sell the Trailblazers. Sales expected to continue into the 2025-26 season, yada, yada, yada. And look, as much as people on kind of that side, like the Blazer side, the trust side, can say like, oh, this is inevitable. It's not even a big deal. This is just the natural evolution of this. It was expected. It was expected, but the timing has been such a question mark.
Yes.
And I guess I do want to say off the bat here, because like news has been evolving this morning.
Yes.
We don't know who's going to buy the Trailblazers, but we do know who is not going to buy the Trailblazers.
Correct.
And that is Phil Knight, much to the chagrin and surprise, perhaps, of many Portlanders. Phil was always kind of seen as this white knight, no pun intended, for Portland. Obviously, made a bid on the Blazers 3 years ago, and was rebuffed and frankly not really, barely even acknowledged by Jody Allen and the trust. So this is sort of what we're dealing with. The Blazers are for sale. Phil Knight's not interested. Moda Center has a 5-year bridge lease that keeps the Blazers here at least until 2030.
They're not going anywhere. Can we please not propagate that?
I don't think it's propagating anything. I think it is what we can get into this. But there is an aging arena that is 30 plus years old.
We're gonna fight today.
It needs to be renovated. We're going to fight. I'm not saying the Blazers are going to move. I think it is something that you have to be wary of. I think it is dangerous to just assume and accept that the NBA wouldn't let this happen again. Like, why is Portland in such? And we'll unpack all this. Like, let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
You asked me what my reaction was when I saw that the Blazers were for sale.
Yep.
Surprise.
Yes.
Only because it was progress on something that has been in complete stasis for years. And then I think my next feeling was genuine excitement for the team and the fan base, because new ownership means new investment, new ideas, new enthusiasm. Um, you know, it could mean you know it could mean some less positive things too, right? Like, I mean, Matt Ishbia has been awesome for the Suns in the sense that he goes big and spends a lot of money. Um, and he lowered prices of concessions, but he's also, meddles too much, is too hands-on, and is, hiring and firing coaches, the way you and I might, return an entree that has a hair on it. So it's like, new ownership, complicated thing. But on the whole, for the Blazers, really positive, and not because I even want to sit here and slam, the Allen family or Jody Allen for, her 7-year run as the chair of the Blazers while navigating this trust. I don't think that's productive. I think the bigger thing is that the franchise has been in stasis this entire time, and there has been a complete lack of there have been dueling interests for Jody, right? Like, yes, she wanted to see the team do well and prosper, and she has spent money. She has spent money on upgrading the practice facility. She has spent money on property around the practice facility. The Blazers roster has not been, cheap. So, I mean, it's not that she hasn't spent money, but there's just investments that you make and like ambitions you have when it's, when you're trying to build something for the long term. And, the Moda Centers needed to be renovated for a long time. And the Blazers have been talking about, these renovations to Moda Center for a long time. Well, they haven't happened. Why? It probably makes more sense for a new owner to do that stuff. So I think that my overall thought is this is good because you're going to get somebody in here who wants to do everything all at once, which isn't realistic, but like starts pushing the franchise into the future. And that wasn't going to happen with Jody. But the other part of it was, I do not want to just have this cockeyed optimism that like, it's great. It's all great. Because there is the uncertainty of what new ownership means. There is the uncertainty of the timeline of expansion. There is the fact that you have an arena that is by NBA standards decaying on a short-term lease. And all those factors make it, at least in my opinion, something you have to be wary of, the potential for somebody to want to move the Blazers. Portland is not, there's, as much as I love this city, I love this market, grew up loving this team, there are real reasons that wealthy people would look at the Trailblazers in Portland and say, that is not where I want my team to be. In terms of, being a business-friendly environment, not really. Having tons of sponsorship dollars, not really. I think there's enough headwinds in Portland that you should be mindful of this stuff. And so what I felt was that the statement that the trust sent was extremely dry, anodyne, and I would have loved for there to have been a little bit more, we are going to commence the process of a sale with the goal, with the primary objective of keeping the team in Portland, finding ownership that will keep the team in Portland for generations to come. And you can point to the fact that Dwayne Hankins said that, the president of the Blazers, when they did the lease agreement with the city, the bridge agreement, which is ostensibly designed to give them more time to negotiate something for the long term. But this is not a Dwayne Hankins thing. The sale is happening way above Dwayne Hankins' head. So employees of the Portland Trailblazers saying, the team's here for the long haul, is really something that is kind of above their pay grade. So that's probably the 30,000-foot view on all of this from my perspective. But I would hand it over to you. When you saw this, how did you react? What was your who was the first person you called?
Well, I was in the car driving to Eugene for a story. So, immediately it became a situation where we have a thing now called Coin Now, where they have us react to things live in real time. And all of a sudden I was pulling over at the exit in Corvallis and doing a Zoom for like 10 minutes. So, that was that. But I think my reaction was a little bit surprised because I always kind of thought that this wouldn't happen until after the NBA finally established the Zombie Sonics and the new franchise in Las Vegas. Everybody kind of knows it's coming. It has taken I think that maybe some of us thought it would be established a little bit sooner, but I thought that they were going to wait until after those two teams were set. That was kind of my idea of where this was. So I thought we had at least year, 2, 3 before we'd be here. So I'm very interested in wanting to know what their thought process was in terms of deciding to move this team now. Obviously it's a hard nut to crack in terms of finding out why right now. That's a pretty tight group of people that are making these decisions. Understandably so. So, yeah, I was surprised because of that mostly. It was, other than that, I mean, yeah, the next reaction was, all right, it's time to turn the page. I'm not surprised, by the way, that Phil Knight is out of the running. I mean, first of all, like, when you look at the amount of money that they offered for the team, like, it was a low offer. So there's that. But also, like, Phil is right in terms of the fact that he's getting older. Like, you and I can, we see Phil walking around in the, bowels of arenas or in the back rooms of stadiums. And he's just, he's getting older. I don't know what else to say. Like, it's apparent. And that's just how life works. He's what, 87, 88 now?
He's 87.
Okay. I was thinking PK 85. I'm like, yeah. So, like, yeah.
We're coming up like 90.
Yep. So, so that doesn't really surprise me at all. But, it's one of those situations where it's going to be really interesting to see who comes in. Now, on the topic of moving the team, I think, first of all, I mean, Adam Silver is very much on the record that he does not like seeing franchises move.
Mm-hmm.
It would also be a really bad mark for the league to move 2 Pacific Northwest franchises.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to talk about a PR disaster. Let's go there. And it would be a PR disaster for the Vulcans to sell to someone who's moving this team, because they already do not have the world's greatest reputation in this city. And, I know Paul Allen would absolutely not want this team moved. So, it would be a stain on Paul Allen's legacy as well. So I just feel pretty confident. I understand your warning, but between the NBA, which is really the 30,000 feet view, who does not want to move teams, and the group behind this sale, I would imagine that part of the agreement when you sell this team is you can't move it.
So say that in your statement. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, if this is something that is like part of the process and is part, let's say it's part of Paul's trust, right? Like, Paul didn't want this, you're saying. So then why wouldn't that be laid out in the trust and the estate plan? And so I think that you have to, when somebody tells you who they are, believe them, sort of thing. Like, I take seriously the fact that this was an omission from the announcement, because it's not an oversight. Like, they knew what they were saying and what they didn't say. You are leaving that door open for a reason. Is it a 1% chance? Is it a 10% chance? I don't know, and I don't claim to know. But what I do know is that it is not impossible. It is absolutely not impossible. And that's why I think that there does need to be I think there needs to be a push for a commitment to find ownership that will, pledge to stay here. But the reality is, who's going to pay for Moda Center to get renovated? Because the owner is not going to pay the full whatever $1.5 billion or whatever it's going to cost to renovate Moda Center when that happens. They're going to want state funding, and they're not going to get the same deal as the Diamond Project that's going through the legislature right now, because that is not, because player salaries in the NBA is not found money. That is existing tax revenue that has been coming into the state for 55 years.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to come up with a different mechanism to get, public funding for the stadium. And there will be Brenna, you live in this state. There will be a fight. People, there will be a large segment of people in the state of Oregon who are not going to want to subsidize arena renovations for a multi-billionaire. That is a foundational sort of issue that we deal with in this state. So I think that is going to be an obstacle. Now, I go back to what I said about new ownership being largely a positive, because, investing in the Blazers, investing in the arena, getting on the cutting edge of some of this stuff can only be an economic driver for Portland. It can only be a cultural driver. The Blazers are such a a North Star of civic pride for Portland. Like, I do not want this, but I will tell you that people in different agencies of influence are talking about this in serious ways to guard against it. Because I think if you just say it won't happen, the NBA doesn't want this to happen again, I think you leave yourself open for a surprise. And
that's
you're
good
right
that people
the
are doing
NBA
that.
doesn't want this. Like David Stern, and I was reminded of this yesterday. David Stern used to always say that anytime a team moves, it's a failure. Well, sure. But by that measure, there were, 3 failures in his tenure. And so it happens. And so I just would argue that there needs to be some vigilance about this issue. I think it's very convenient to say, oh, it couldn't happen. Let's move on.
I understand people guarding against this, and I think that's a great way to look at it. But I just don't believe in fear mongering either. And I don't want, I just think it's a really low percentage chance, but I think that people should, do everything they can to make sure that this team stays here. But it would take a lot of different things to happen. I understand what you're saying about the statement. I don't know. I guess I'm just not as conspiratorial about it.
I just want more. I would just like Jody, who has never been a forward-facing steward of this franchise, other than being at games and sitting courtside. My ask of her, and what I wrote in the paper, and on OregonLive.com, was I ask more of her in this situation. I ask her to make a stronger commitment to Portland through this process.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, we can belabor the Jody point to death. It would be nice if she's done one media availability since she's been in charge, but that has not happened. So, I don't know. I don't know about that. I wish there was more communication from that side of things, but that is that's her prerogative, I suppose. So,
And the thing that we have to acknowledge, and it's very easy to vilify Jody and to make her the boogeyman in this whole thing. We do not know the terms of the trust that she is executing. We do not know what her actual obligations and limitations are when it comes to offloading the team. Does she have discretion? My sense is that she has some degree of discretion on who the buyer is. But she also, and boy, we're going to hear this term a lot over the next year or however long it takes, but she has a fiduciary duty to get the highest price and the most profit for Paul's philanthropic interests. So, can she say, if you're going to buy this team, it has to be to keep it in Portland? Can she do that if it's not explicitly stated in the trust? And that's something that we don't know. We don't know what kind of latitude she actually has. But what I will say is Phil Knight, and I wrote this 2 years ago when the Wall Street Journal wrote a great piece kind of about Phil's kind of ongoing interest and sort of shone a light on the fact that, it wasn't a one-time offer that was rejected and then Phil went away. It was for at least a matter of months. Phil Knight and Alan Smolensky, the real estate dude from LA, minority owner in the Dodgers, who joined Phil in that bid, had kind of maintained their overtures. What I said was, the longer this went on without like Phil being the buyer, the better chance that somebody got involved who is not as committed to keeping Portland, the Blazers in Portland. Now, is that conspiratorial? Is that being pessimistic? Possibly, but like I also just I just do not trust people operating at that level. I do not believe that they, have necessarily yours and my best interests at heart. And so, I mean, we'll see. I think that my overall feeling on the sale is cautious optimism, like guarded optimism, because the Blazers being in new hands that will, bring a level of investment and excitement to the franchise, to the city, is a game changer. And that is what is exciting and what should be exciting. And I think it's okay to lean into the optimism and the positivity of this. I just think it would be unwise to ignore kind of the other piece.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying, and definitely something went through my brain as well of like, all right, this is what Blazers fans have been pining for. We'll see if it actually works out the way they want it to, because I've never really agreed with people completely villainizing Jody. I've always thought it's way more gray than what people think it is. And she's an easy person to villainize in all of this. It's somebody who isn't going to be around for the long term. So it's an easy person to just blame, And now it's like, okay, we're going to see if the new owner is really who you think it is, And this is a franchise and a fan base that really hasn't had to go through this a lot. I mean, this is only the third time it's been sold. Like, this is a franchise that's used to having an owner for a very long period of time. So, this is going to be an adjustment for all involved. Hopefully it works out in the way that everybody hopes, but it also could end up being a be careful what you wish for situation. But
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that's important to keep in mind is, like, you don't really see, or you're unlikely to see like one person come in and buy the team. Like, it's not going to be even Phil Knight, right? Like, even when Phil Knight was attempting to buy the team, it was with Smolensky. You see investment groups. You see groups that have like a primary owner or a face of the ownership group come in and buy it. But the idea that, one person like Paul Allen is going to come in and just own this team. No, it's going to be a diversified group. And now that you can have like foreign money involved, I mean, like, it would be interesting to see how that plays in Portland when the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia is an investor in the Trailblazers. Like, I just think it's going to be an interesting thing it's going to be a fascinating thing to watch unfold, because I mean, Portland would just like there to be a singular billionaire with Portland roots who just is, got endless cash and is committed to the city as they are the team. And outside of Phil Knight, that person doesn't really exist. Tim Boyle hasn't shown any real interest in getting involved here. Travis Boersma, the Dutch Brothers guy, not sure that he's even like, he could be part of a group, but he's not rich enough to do it himself.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm not trying to credit, like, once you're a billionaire, you're rich enough. Like, congratulations, you've done very well. But in terms of but I mean, at this level, I don't think there is. It's kind of like the conversations we've had around the Diamond Project and the idea of an owner for a potential baseball team. Like, this is probably going to be somebody we do not know. This is not going to be Jeff Bezos wants to buy the Blazers. Isn't that great?
Can I float something?
Sure.
This is totally spitballing. This is just an idea I worked through on the Zoom in real time yesterday that I did. But, you know, like, you want to know somebody who has the money to buy both the Blazers and the Seahawks? That dude.
Bezos?
Yeah.
Sure.
Like,
he's a little. Don't you think he's a little too busy advising the president right now, and
sending people to space
and killing off, you know, one of the most important journalistic enterprises in the country? God, his hands are full.
I
still shop at Amazon though, so
yeah, we're still guilty. Yeah, I mean, you know, that's just something that I kind of thought about out loud, is like, man, you know, he did show interest in another NBA franchise, albeit a completely different stature of NBA franchise. The Celtics and the Blazers are not the same. But if you can kind of buy the Blazers and then get your foot in to buy the Seahawks, like, that's something I bet you he would be interested in. So it's an interesting idea. In theory, I have no idea if that's even remotely on the table. But you know, just an interesting spitball thought on my end. You know, whoever comes in and buys this team, like, maybe they would also have the inside track to buy the Seahawks, which would then make things a little more interesting.
If Jeff Bezos bought the Blazers, would you be a little more fearful of a Seattle move?
No, I'm not.
Interesting.
Because the league has made it very clear that they want to have a team there, and that they're going.
But, like, we don't know the expansion timeline, and that's the thing.
No.
Like, yes, Adam Silver said this week that, you know, he thinks it'll be on the agenda at the Board of Governors meeting in July. But there's no process. There's no timeline. They're at the very beginning of this. And, like, you have conversations about, like, expansion with people, and they throw around, like, 10 years, 12 years. And it could be a lot sooner than that, but, like, the long range of this, depending on how these conversations go, and remember, like, the owners have to, like, essentially, the 30 owners have to essentially give up money in the short term to make money in the long term through expansion. So, like, you know, how clean of a decision is that going to be? We don't know. So if there is a calculation of, like, hey, the NBA really wants to get back in Seattle, and a new owner has, like, the means and the mechanism to, like, again, maybe this is conspiratorial, but I'm just saying, if expansion's farther off than we think, I think the door's open.
I think it would be a disastrous PR move for the league. I mean, disastrous. I don't think Adam Silver would let it happen.
I also would just say, to your earlier point, I do not think that Jody Allen or the Paul G. Allen Estate Trust give two shooting hoots about PR and their image. Like, if Jody cared about Portland or being visible or being, like, I don't mean if she cared about Portland. Let me rephrase. If she cared about her popularity in Portland, or if Paul cared about his popularity in Portland, they're, over the course of the last 30 or nearly 40 years, you know, could have done a lot of things a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, always was, you know, Seattle-based ownership. It's always been Seattle-based enterprise. There's been virtually no connection to the city of Portland. There's been virtually no investment in the city of Portland outside of the
building the Moda Center,
the team itselp. So
building the Moda Center is, I think, pretty notable.
I'm not saying this, but that is still like a self-serving team-centric thing. There was no connection. Nothing was done to really create a connection to the city between the Allen family. So I'm just saying, like, I don't think, like, how you'll be remembered in Portland is really a priority for for Paul's estate right now.
Okay. I mean, I just come back to, there are so many issues with moving this team, but moving it to Seattle would be like DEFCON, like, insanity, especially when, like we've discussed, the league has been very, very active and basically, you know, not saying it out loud, but saying it to anybody who remotely matters, that they want to reestablish a team in Seattle. And also, Seattle would not embrace stealing another team from another city.
Maybe. I mean, but like Seattle is not a monolith. Like it's like I don't know that that's entirely true.
I don't think so. I really don't think so. And also, like, and they wouldn't be viewed up there as the Sonics. They would be viewed as the Blazers. People would not embrace that. They would not want to go watch that team as much as they would want to go watch a newly established franchise.
Maybe, but I just would say that these things have a way of changing over time.
Yes, I understand that.
And that perception and perspectives can shift. And I think that there are things happening behind the scenes that people should be guarding against. And again, I would not be raising this as a concern if there were not people in positions of influence or adjacent to people with positions of influence who are also sounding the alarm bells. I mean, I understand that Ron Wyden is in front of cameras a lot and like puts himself in front of a lot of situations. Mm-hmm. But like, do you think the senior senator from the state of Oregon is sending a letter to Adam Silver about the importance of keeping the Blazers in Portland, as he did this morning?
Yes.
On a total whim? Because there's absolutely no smoke whatsoever? Like, no, I don't believe that. I think the fact that this is something that people... And you can't tell me that Ron Wyden doesn't, and I'm not saying you would, but like that Ron Wyden doesn't have influence on this stuff, because Ron Wyden was front and center and played a pivotal role in the WNBA coming to Portland. And so I think that, again, it's just something that should be taken seriously enough. I don't think it needs to dominate the conversation necessarily around the sale, but I think that Jody Allen could do a whole lot of good here. And she could shut me up, by the way, if she cares or if she would like to, by saying, to be clear, a primary objective of this sale will be to keep the Portland Trail Blazers here into perpetuity. Paul loved the Blazers. Paul loved Portland. He would never want to see the Blazers anywhere else. It is our goal to fulfill his wishes of keeping the team here for the long term, and that will be a condition of any sale. Could shut me up.
Jody, make another statement.
Backup quarterback. I'll go back to talking about Oregon's defensive coordinator. But in the meantime, until we have something that offers a scintilla of assurance or even a priority, I think it has to be acknowledged.
I understand it. I get it. And you're probably right that you're probably not going to get that from them. Because Lord knows that... Lord knows we've all been asking to talk to Jody for years, so...
Do you know what the best part of this podcast has been, Brenna? Aside from the simmering rage that you are trying to tamp down, that you feel for me in this moment. Aside from that...
Yeah.
Aside from the Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen reference that kicked this whole thing off.
Yeah.
That we have made it however long we've been going.
Ha!
Without talking. Like, you want to talk about like, you're like, boy, let's cover up some bad news with some good news. Was dropping the ownership news the morning, and I'm sure this was the plan either way, because it made sense to do it either way.
Yeah.
But the morning after a disastrous lottery outcome, not entirely unpredictable, but a disastrous lottery outcome for the Blazers, made just so much more painful by the fact that 3 teams jumped into the top 4 and the top 3 of the lottery, including the Dallas Mavericks, who were 1 spot below the Blazers in the lottery.
Insane.
With 1.8% chance all the way to number 1 to grab Cooper Flag, which they will do in June.
And the Blazers were 1 ping pong ball away from getting the number 1 pick.
I dismissed that. I get it. I get that they were 1 ping pong ball away, but like during the Wemby lottery, there was that same thing. Oh, they were 1 number off. Well, there was like 7 versions of the combination that like Charlotte would have won it with.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, so yes, I understand that in the room, in the moment, I'm sure that there was like Andre Patterson's in there like, oh, if it's a 6, it'll be us. But it's like, there's so many teams that like were, one of those numbers off, or, had 3 combinations and couldn't get any of them. So but yes, it adds to the drama for sure. I guess I would love to hear your point of view on what the lottery means, what the lottery result means for the Blazers. I wrote a column about sort of my perspective on the lottery in general. And the NBA did 2 things, right? They flattened the odds at the top of the lottery to disincentivize tanking. But then they expanded the playoffs to include the play-in, so more teams had a chance at the play-in. So there's now a kind of a sweet spot where you can credibly pursue the postseason, but also maintain reasonable enough lottery odds. Now, you're probably not going to jump from 14 into the top 4, but like, 8, 9, 10, 11, like we're seeing it. Last year, it was the 9th team in the lottery, Atlanta, that jumped to 1. This year, it was the 11th. You had the 11, 8, and 5, I think, all jump into the top 3. San Antonio gets the number 2 pick. I mean, I would put San Antonio very much in the driver's seat now for the Giannis sweepstakes because of that. So I mostly think that that teams are not going to be able to justify the all-out season-long tanks that we've seen kind of historically. And I almost feel like mediocrity is the new tanking, which would put the Blazers sort of ahead of the curve this year, as we're kind of all like, oh, what are they doing? Why are they winning games? They're not going to make they're not going to make the play-in, and they never were going to make the play-in. But they were able to play games to win them, play hard down the stretch, get more fans invested in what they were doing, and like, I mean, it bears out. Like, they still had what, a 17% chance of getting into the top 4, which was not nothing. It's not reliable, but neither is sucking. Like, Utah did not suck and bench Walker Kessler in the second half of games when he already had a double-double at halftime, and not play Larry Markkinen in the fourth quarter because they wanted the 5th pick. Washington did not put out one of the most putrid teams in the history of the NBA to get the 6th pick. And I don't know if those franchises can really ask their fans to sit through another season of that next year, when it backfired so spectacularly for all 3 of the teams that did it. And so I think that all you can really do is, maybe you get rid of the veterans that help you win games, but you probably have to play to win and let the chips fall where they may, except in rare circumstances. But anyway, that is my question to you. I'm just going to add a question mark at the end of all of that and let you respond.
Well, the first thing that really struck me just in the moment of everything happening, Blazers get the 11th pick. I'm at a bar taking this in with other Blazers fans.
Do we need to call somebody? Do you need a helpline?
Yeah, that's it. And I did not partake. And the guttural scream that came, I was like, oh yes, that is the experience of being a Blazers fan. Yeah, let me lap it up. Like, it was just like, I don't know, I have like the moment on my phone, and it's just it's like, yes, that is what it feels like to be a Blazers fan. A lot. Like, my 2 moments of pure joy, well, maybe 3. There's been like 3 moments of pure joy with this franchise. Okay, actually, you know what? I could probably go like 5. One of which is something that we'll probably never, that most people would forget. But that Brandon Roy game in the playoffs against Dallas, like, where he went Superman on them when he had bum knees, is one of my greatest sports fandom experiences of all time.
Absolutely.
But generally, this has been a franchise where there's been a lot more lows than highs. That's just, and especially recently, and just hearing that sound was just like, oh yes, that is the experience of being a Blazers fan. Like, I don't know what else to say. But yeah, no, it was, it wasn't surprising. That was the pick that they had the second best odds at getting. But then watching everything else play out the way it was,
Yeah.
it was like, oh, why not us? Why not? This is what? Why not us? Like, it's just, and I mean, I guess you have to remember that a few years ago, in some cases, they did jump to number 3. So they have had some good luck before, very recently. Okay. But
that's from 5 to 3. Like, you, at that point, you had what, like, probably a 40% chance. I'd have to go back and look, like 40% chance of getting into the top 4. So it's like, but yes, I mean, and the last 4 years, I want to say they've moved back 3 of the last 4, right? They moved back to get Shaden Sharp. They fell back to get Klingon, and then they fell back this year. So they did move up. They did move up to get Scoot.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it definitely kind of felt like a woe is me situation as you kept watching, as we go to commercial break, and you see that it's Charlotte, the 76ers, Dallas, and San Antonio. You're like, why are we the odd man out here? So that was just hard to see. I don't know what else to say. It just kind of feels like the plight of being a Blazers fan. And, you and I both grew up as fans of this team. So we've seen some things. You've seen even more than I have. And it's just
because
like,
I'm old.
Because you're old. You're so old. But yeah, it was frustrating to navigate in terms of what the actual results were. And yes, I agree with you, by the way. Like, tanking, just, I guess there is some sort of silver lining in the fact that the Blazers did not tank this year and did not put everybody through that, and at least gave everyone a glimmer-ish of hope. Because, man, tanking is not what it used to be, which, by the way, I think is a good thing. Like, I understand the thought process, whatever, but like, and I know that there's some people that are now thinking like, oh, did we go too far with the lottery? Did we flatten the odds too much? All that sort of thing. But I'm just not down with rewarding incompetence. And that was definitely what was going on with the 3, especially like Utah. Like, oh my God, guys. Jesus, that poor fan base. Ugh. They've had to just go along with this. And now you get nothing out of it.
Yeah. And I feel, okay, so obviously a lot of big emotions around the fact that Dallas won the lottery just 4 months after trading Luka Doncic for peanuts. Like, making a just mind-numbingly idiotic trade.
Yeah.
If for no other reason, by the way, not to say that trading Luka Doncic, maybe they know something about trading Luka Doncic. Okay, fine. You didn't want Luka Doncic anymore. But what you got back was just not even close to what you could have gotten. So if you want to trade Luka, then trade Luka. Like, do it, and do it where you get like an actual return. The bailout that getting Cooper Flag represents for the Dallas Mavericks is the sort of thing that Portland would look at and be like, we didn't get that bailout ever. When have we ever gotten that bailout? When things have gone wrong. We just traded our superstar. We tried really hard to make it work for a long time. Where's our bailout? Utah, where's our bailout? Well, it doesn't really work that way because there isn't like some puppet master sitting back there, like actually deciding like, ooh, let's do something nice for Dallas. Let's reward San Antonio again for being so well run. Isn't it sad that Pop had to retire? Let's give him the second pick so they can get Giannis. Like, it doesn't work that way, even though it feels that way. But here's what I found to be the most striking and maybe the most gutting about the whole thing. Portland, Utah, Charlotte, Washington, Milwaukee, when they were bad. These are the franchises in the markets that need the lottery, that have an outsized need to build through the draft. Because Blazers are not signing a free agent all-star. The Blazers are not going to be the recipient of an all-star asking for a trade to Portland. So getting guys here is just harder. Same with Utah, same with Charlotte, same with Washington. Would be the same with San Antonio if not for the lightning they've caught and like just the incredible outlier the San Antonio Spurs are in the NBA. Yes. Sacramento is another one, right? So it does feel unfair that you've got teams like the Philadelphia 76ers, the Dallas Mavericks, that are going to be fine over time because players will sign there, players will want to go there. And by the way, they have existing franchise players and cornerstones. Like, the Dallas Mavericks have 3 Hall of Famers on their roster right now. The Philadelphia 76ers have a guy who won the MVP 2 years ago. And then another superstar they just gave a max contract to. It wasn't smart, but they did it. Plus Tyrese Maxey, who might be the best of all 3 of them. But they did suck this year. And Dallas did suck because they traded Luka Doncic for bullshit. And it just feels like a stick in the eye when Portland needed the luck. Utah, Charlotte, Washington needed the luck.
Yeah.
Dallas was going to be fine if it drafted at 11. Philly was going to be fine if it drafted at number 5. Portland, screwed. Utah, screwed. Charlotte, screwed. Washington, screwed. Are you sensing the theme here?
Yes.
Now, here's the caveat to all of this, which is that winning the lottery is not a silver bullet.
No.
Do you remember
that directly? As
do you
Portland
remember the
Trailblazers
2013 lottery? Do you remember who went number 1 overall?
I do not.
Anthony Bennett to the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Oh yes, that was a good one.
That was the Victor Oladipo draft. Trey Burke went number 9. Now, Giannis went in the teens. Rudy Gobert went number 27. So, and then the Andrew Wiggins, Jabari Parker draft. We were like, oh my God, like one of these guys is going to be a superstar. Both these guys are going to be a superstar. How do you choose? I guess you'd rather have Andrew Wiggins because he made 1 All-Star game by being, the 4th best player on the Warriors. But, whatever. So winning the lottery is not necessarily a silver bullet. With Cooper Flagg, it probably is.
Yeah.
But there are still good players at 11. There's still good players at 5. There's still good players at 6. Utah should know that as well as anybody. I mean, they got a franchise cornerstone player. I mean, forget Gobert. Donovan Mitchell was the 12th pick? So I
don't recall.
They Devin Booker was the 11th pick. I was on with Dirt and Sprague yesterday morning, and we got into the idea of the last number 1 pick to win MVP, and landed on it was LeBron in 2014. So there are other ways to do this, but when you are a small market team, your lane is so much narrower. You are threading such a tighter needle that you need the draft in a way that teams that are going to attract free agents, are going to have players wanting to get traded there, don't need it. So, I mean, good for Dallas. Like, their fans, like, whew, boy, their fans, they really went through it for they were the least happy fans in the NBA for 4 months? That must have been a miserable 4 months. Tell it to Sacramento that didn't make the playoffs for 20 years. Tell it to Portland, which, is still reeling from the Dame trade. Tell it to Charlotte, which lost an NBA team only to get another NBA team and have it be called the Bobcats. I mean, what a slap in the face. I mean, my high school was the Bobcats, and it was a terrible name for an NBA team. So, Charlotte's really been through it. But whew, the Mavs fans, they really paid their dues in those, 110 days that things sucked there.
It's funny that you're going on this rant because one of our anchors at our station, Liz Den, she is from Dallas. And so the family group chat was going off because the older people in the group chat were like, you didn't have to go through the 90s. You don't understand.
They did suck.
They did suck,
but they had a great logo. And that makes it all better. They also, as a terrible team, beat Chicago in the year that the Bulls went 72-10. They were one of the teams that beat the Bulls. I remember watching that game on WGN, and it's like a terrible Dallas team with Sean Bradley in the middle and whoever else, and they managed to beat the the best NBA team of all time on WGN at 4:00. I'd just gotten home from the Cloverdale Elementary School, watched 2 episodes of Full House, and then on WGN came the Bulls versus Mavericks, and I was like, what is even happening right now?
Yeah, it was a rough go there for a while.
Big Mary-Kate and Ashley episode of the Oregonian Sports Podcast. Ever tell you about the time I got roasted by Bob Saget?
No.
Used to live in Hermosa Beach, and there's a comedy club right there on Hermosa Avenue called the Comedy and Magic Club. Bob Saget played a show there. Wife and I got tickets, and we walked in, and they said, "Have you been here before?" "No, it's our first time." "Oh, great! We've got the perfect seats for you." They sat us front and center on the little table that's actually attached to the stage.
Mm-hmm.
Bob Saget comes out, tells a lot of jokes. Really funny, dirty guy. R.I.P. Bob Saget. And he told a joke about the Titanic. Just vile, awful, terrible stuff about the Titanic. I don't remember what it was, but I just know it was like highly inappropriate. But you know what I did? Laughed my ass off. Thought it was hilarious. I'm laughing hysterically. Bob Saget stops the show, points at me and says, "This sick guy thinks the Titanic is funny. He thinks that the loss of X number of people, in one of the greatest, maritime disasters in American history is funny. He thinks it's something to laugh about. Like, this effing guy," horrifyingly embarrassing, but a fun memory. And
I think a great way to wrap up this podcast.
I think Bob Saget would appreciate the irony that I'm here to tell this story and he isn't. So.
Yep, that's how we're gonna wrap it.
Who's laughing now? Okay. Brenna, next week we're gonna know who's buying the Blazers by next week. This is gonna be all wrapped up.
Oh, absolutely, easy peasy. That's how $1 billion things go.
Yeah, what do we think? Should we set it over under before we get out of here? Over under Blazers sell for over under $3.9 billion.
0.9? That seems a little high to me. I'd go like 3.75.
I'm going to go over, even though I think you might be right. I probably would have gone under if you'd gone over.
Yeah.
I think, but the argument I'll make is scarcity, opportunity for development around the Moda Center, I think is going to be part of what at least Jody is trying to sell. And so I think that somebody will come in, for the sake of argument, Blazers will sell for $4.2 billion.
And I think we cannot forget getting a foot in the door if somebody also wants a piece of the Seahawks.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I think that's something to think about.
Great point by Brenna Greene. Bringing it as always on the Oregonian Sports Podcast. We don't always agree, but we do always have a good time. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for telling your friends to listen to the Oregonian Sports Podcast. They've been emailing, they've been calling, they've been knocking on our door saying thank you for doing this every week. Talk to you next week.
A rabid fan base.